We see it as a significant watershed budget that seeks to kind of open up the Fijian economy, and I think many countries have done that to great advantage, Mauritius, Singapore included. We see that as a bit skewed towards trading, and probably manufacturers, local manufacturers are going to face a challenging time, but will make us more competitive, there's no doubt about it. And I think to that extent it's appreciated. My question is, in the process of broad basing and trying to rationalize the taxation, which again is a industry request for many years, there might be certain unintended consequences, such as the timing of what is being done. And if in a situation where already jobs are being impacted, further pressure on certain sectors through not getting the multiplier effect of money rolling within the country and rather imports coming in might impact employment. But the other significant thing that I see is value adding of local produce. And if I may refer to cacao as one. A few years ago, there wasn't maybe a decade ago, there really weren't any serious cacao or chocolate players. Now there are 3 or 4 who seem to be doing quite well. And they have re-engineered their model now to try and suit the domestic market. They've come back into the domestic market. And in the process also vertically integrated and opened up the cacao farming. Now, those kind of players, the likes of Andi Chocolate, if I may just give an example, I feel are going to be seriously impacted. Do you think there might be an opportunity for the government to review those kind of manufacturers who might actually have something that might be very, very significantly impacting for them? And correspondingly, the trading opportunity on that will not be much, but it'll still be a threat to them.
You know, when we were looking at the entire tariff rate, all those things you've said exactly, we've taken that into account. I mean, you also have to look at what were the target markets also. They weren't necessarily for the general public. And even if you look at the taste of those chocolates, the general public aren't necessarily attuned to that kind of taste. And as you know, that some of these, I know one of them personally, who actually, one of the problems he found in breaking into the US market was that there was no consistency. There's a huge demand for it, but he did not want to actually venture into the US market because there's no consistency in the quality of the cocoa. And so there are more structural issues than anything else. So the huge US market, as I said, the brand Fiji has actually got a very strong brand, and people pick up the brand Fiji, and of course conjures up all sorts of positivity, and that's what he wants to capitalize on. But the fact of the matter is that there's a more structural issue, as opposed to it now, because we made chocolate 5%, it's not necessarily going to affect them because of the fact that they weren't necessarily targeting the local market. You did not see that in the supermarkets. You did not see those in the supermarkets. They were mainly, if I went to the Sofitel lounge, I would see the chocolate there. The Andi chocolates, for example. So that's been taken into account also. I think the other point is that even if you look at some of the other ones, there's a company called Pinto Industries in Vanuatu, right? Pinto makes mops and brushes and what have you. It's a bit of labor-intensive production line. The duty rates for that remains the same. It's in Vanuatu. In the same way, we, for example, have propped up PEFCO. We're now converting the debt into equity. Why? Because PEFCO is the only source of employment for over 1,800 people in the Lomai Viti area. So there are those kind of advantages or disadvantages we need to look at. Now, I called you up before this, and we talked about the biscuits. So you still have that protection of 32, but we've taken away the 15 the excise. But if 50 to 70% of your target market is overseas market, that does not have much of a dent in you, and you can of course sharpen the pencil too. So that's how we've looked at it, So, and we've really thought about the impact. It's not going to be. We're not saying that henceforth, even we're saying that we're going to review this further. we are not saying that therefore everything will be brought down. You know, we have people, for example, there are certain domestic production, the example that I gave you, one machine, you know, with only 4 or 5 people, but again, a very unfair advantage. But there are other industries where people have made, you know, $20 million investment, $30 million investment, making, you know, things that aren't manufactured in Fiji at all. There could be some competition, but the quality products may come from Europe. But there may be, I'll give you a case in point, the cables, you know, electrical cables, etc. There are certain voltage cables that are not made in Fiji. So we've done another line item where they have said we don't make these voltage cables. So we put a separate line item saying any voltage cables above this particular level is 5%. Of course, if they come back to us in 3 years' time or 5 years' time to say we can now make this, then you can re-look at that. So that's the approach we have taken. I mean, we've done with exercise books, the particular production. There was one company that, you know, brought in supposedly manufacturing cigarette lighters, but they weren't manufacturing lighters. They simply brought the case, they put the tube, the gas inside it, and they said we're manufacturing it. But there was a $5 specific duty on any imported lighters. And they've had that protection for the past, I don't know, 10, 15 years. So for other, you know, traders, other importers, they say, well, this is actually quite unfair. It also builds confidence in other businesses too. We cannot simply look at that one particular business. And most of the people we have seen who actually, rather than the large-scale investment ones, they have other sources of revenue apart from that one particular production. So a lot of people, you know, double up, triple up, they have different sources of production. So that's how we've looked at it.